Everybody, JC here with another TNI toy review, and today we're taking a look at the new DC Collectibles Pandora action figure from their new 52 line. We'll start the review off with a quick look at the packaging. Basic DC Collectibles packaging, white trim with maroon color for this particular figure, kind of matches the figure or the character's costume colors. Says Justice League at the top and the name of the figure at the bottom, and displays the figure nicely on a window packaging so you can see what you're getting before you buy it and everything, along with the accessories. On the right side is a shaded in picture of the character, like we typically see with the DC Collectible packaging, and then on the right side we have a picture of the actual figure along with the name of the sculptor. Phil Ramirez sculpted this figure. And then actually there's a sculptor listed for the skull accessory on this one. Paul Harding sculpted the skull, Pandora skull box. And then on the back we have a thumbnail image of the figure along with a brief bio about her. And then below that there is the Trinity War 3-pack, which is a reissue of the Superman, New 52 Superman, Wonder Woman, and Batman figures as a 3-pack. And then below that is a picture of all the New 52 Justice League figures that have been released. So, like I say, basic packaging that we pretty much see with all the DC Collectibles. So there's no surprises here as far as packaging goes. So let's get the figure open and take a look at what's inside. Okay, so here's a look at the figure outside of the packaging. Right off the bat, same type of nice detailing with the sculpt and the paint apps. A lot of nice shading on the costume. A lot of detailing down to the boots and the laces. She's got two workable gun holsters on her legs. And then she's got a soft goods cape, a soft goods inner type jacket. The lower pieces of the jacket are soft goods. And then she's got a separate piece from the cape, which is a soft goods hood. Now, one thing I want to notate about the hood, and actually about the cape as well, is initially they kind of look like they should be removable. You can actually kind of pull the hood up over her head even. It's a little bit tight, but it's not attached in the front, so you can actually remove it in the front. But the thing is only half of her skull is actually decorated with hair. The back half of her skull, I don't know how well you can see it on camera, but actually doesn't have any hair on it. And the hood is actually attached to the back of the head. So even though you can kind of lift up the hood up around her head, it's not really meant to be removed. The hood does, though, fit nicely around the head and has a nice shape to it, which I think looks really good. And then the same thing with the cape. The cape, even if you pop the head off, it's actually attached to her back, so it's not meant to be removed either. Her face, some nice detailing. She's got the purple hair that comes down on her forehead. Her eyes are whited out, and then she's got the red markings on around her cheeks and chin, and then red lipstick, which is nice. And then you can see some nice detailing on her coat with the buttons. She's got little things that stick off of her sleeves. And then, like I say, with like the boots, there's some nice detailing with the laces and everything. She's got heels, so she doesn't stand very well. She has a peg hold, but of course no figure stand or anything. So she is one of these figures that will fall over easily. Accessory-wise, she comes with two pistols, both fit in each of the holsters. There's some halfway decent detailing on the pistols. I do kind of think that the pistols look a little big for her. I don't know. I mean, I guess they're not terrible, but they do strike me as just being a little bit big. and they do fit a little bit loose, at least in mine, in her hands. Not so loose that they fall out, but do somewhat fit loosely. So like, if you want to try and basically, because the finger doesn't extend out enough to go in the actual trigger hole, it's hard to kind of make it look like the finger's in there. But you can do it if you fiddle around with it a little bit. Now, as I say, she's got the 2 working holsters on her legs. Now, another thing I want to kind of point out, I'm not really sure. The way the holsters are designed, it almost looks like the guns are meant to fit in backwards in the holsters. They fit a little bit better when you put them in backwards like that. And I'm not sure why you would put your guns in holsters backwards like that, since when you'd go to draw them, you'd be like holding the guns upside down. And they certainly do fit in putting them in normal, but they just strike me as like they made the holster so that you put the guns in backwards. But it's really up to you how you want to display it. You can do it either way. Like I said, just from a practical standpoint, I'm not sure why you would have your guns sticking out backwards like that. And I don't know what technically the correct position is. I don't know if, like in the comic books, for some reason, maybe she has her guns in backwards. Or, like I said, it may not be, and you can certainly get them in regularly. So, you can, like I said, display them pretty much either way. It's just, for some reason, when I first looked at the holsters, it struck me as if, like, the holsters were on backwards or something, or the guns were meant to be put in backwards on her leg. But again, that's may be just a false assumption on my part, and you can certainly put the guns in normally. The other accessory she comes with is the skull, her Pandora's box, which is in the DC Comics is this skull that she has. Actually, I'm just going to set this aside. So, and there's some nice detailing on it, some red eyes. As I mentioned when we were looking at the packaging, the skull was actually sculpted by a different sculptor than the action figure, which is something you don't usually see. You don't see credits usually for an accessory sculpt. Now, one thing, I'm not 100%, I seem to recall back during Toy Fair when the DC Collectibles first showed this figure, that there was supposed to be some kind of more elaborate skull box or something, or like the packaging was supposed to be a skull. I don't know. I remember something about there being more something to do elaborate with the skull than just a little plastic accessory. Obviously in the comic books, at least from what I've read, the skull was featured heavily in the Trinity War storyline. And spoiler alert if you haven't read it, but basically when they end up opening the skull, the crime syndicate ends up jumping out through from their dimension to this dimension. So it basically ends up being some type of portal from the crime syndicate dimension to this dimension. And that's essentially how they get to Earth, which is what's going on in the current storylines for DC Comics right now. So this character and this skull in particular kind of played a fairly large part in the current storylines going on in the DC Comics, the Forever Evil storyline in the Trinity War. But other than that, I really don't know a lot about this character, or the skull itself. It was supposed to be like everyone thought it was Pandora's box of legend and everything, and if you opened it, evil, would take over the world. And of course, essentially that's what happened. The crime syndicate came busting out. But it wasn't like magical or anything. It was just like a plan for the crime syndicate who wanted to come to our planet and our dimension to take over because they had pretty much ruined their own planet. So anyway, those are the accessories you get with this figure. And like I said, so overall very nice detailing, some nice accessories, and an overall nice looking figure. Definitely a nice face sculpt with it and everything. Okay, so the figure stands just about, with her hood and everything, stands right around 7 inches tall. She about the same height as Wonder Woman. Again, with the hood, maybe just a little bit taller. Here she is with Superman. So again, there with the hood, she's about the same height. And then with a little bit bigger scale character like Cyborg, she's a little shorter. So overall scale doesn't seem to be terribly off. I'm not really sure how tall this character is in the comics, but seems to be about right from what I remember from the Trinity War storyline. So let's take a quick look at articulation, which of course, you know, typically with DC collectible figures, this is where the weakest part of the figure, and that pretty much holds true here. She doesn't have a whole, she can move her head left and right, because again the hood is a separate piece. She's got a little bit of tilt that she can get to her head, but not really. It's pretty much just the left and right movement that you get. The arms are with the standard hinge ball joints. And they're restricted a little bit by the cape, but again, because it's a soft goods cape and everything, she can still get pretty good movement, even with the cape. Single jointed elbows, no kind of swivel bicep. She does have swivel wrists, but no kind of hinges or anything on the wrist, just the swivel. She has basically no midsection articulation. No ab crunch at all. Legs are basically standard T-crotch design. She can put her legs back some, again hindered by all the soft goods, but still because of it being soft goods she can get some movement to the back. Obviously she can't put her legs out at all with the T-crotch design. And there's no swivel thigh or anything like that. Single jointed knee. She does have a swivel at the top of her boot, a boot swivel, but no kind of ankle swivel or any kind of ankle pivot at all. So overall, pretty basic with the articulation. You're basically just going to get basic poses out of this figure like you typically do with most of the DC collectible figures. So again, overall, not a bad looking figure. You know, I'm not terribly familiar with this character. Like I said, she did play a somewhat major role in the recent Trinity War storyline, along with her accessory, this skull box. Now, one thing I also want to point out that it's a little disappointing is she can't really hold the skull. Her hands are sculpted in a way so they can hold the guns, but she doesn't really able to hold the skull at all. Now, if you really want to try and kind of balance it on the top of her hand or something, you can do that, but like if you breathe at all on it, it's going to fall off. So you kind of have to just put the skull down in front of her, really, if you want to display the skull. It's a little disappointing that, you know, they didn't design it so they could maybe fit in one of her hands. I guess it was either to sculpt the hands in a way so she could hold her guns, or sculpt a hand so she could hold the skull, and I guess they decided to go with the guns. Maybe a little stand for the skull would have been nice, but like I said, basically as it is, you essentially just have to put it down on the ground in front of her. But other than that, I think it's a nice figure. You know, articulation-wise, you know, again, it is the weakest part of the figure, but again, if you've been collecting DC collectible figures in the New 52 line, it's pretty much exactly what you're going to, you know, have come to expect from this line. So there's really no surprises there. You should be used to the minimal articulation with these by now. But detailing and paint texturing and all that stuff is very nice looking on the figure. I like how they've made the soft goods hood and cape separately, so she's still got some good head movement. And I like how the hood fits on her head and looks really good. And I think the face really kind of stands out nicely within the hood. You know, I mean, the figure is basically all one color other than the face, and I think it really kind of stands out nicely like that. So overall, I like the look of the figure and think it's a nice addition to your collection. Again, I'm not that familiar with the character. She doesn't seem to be a major player in the DC universe overall, so I don't know. I think she may be appearing in the Justice League Dark comic book series, maybe. But overall, is this a character that you really have to have for your collection? I don't know. That's going to be a preference up to you. But as far as the character goes, I think they did a nice job with her, and will make a good addition to your new 52 collection. So that's my review. I hope you enjoy it. Until next time, I'll catch you later.